Welcome once again to another episode of Crazy Canuck Trucking. Thank you everyone for liking and sharing and following along and for writing reviews. It's much appreciated. I can't get back to everybody, but I appreciate every thought and comment that there is out there. Last episode was the first installment of my interview with Ben Avern, who as a young lad read about the ice roads as he was growing up in England and decided he wanted to try it someday, never imagining that he would actually make it to the ice roads and end up making his home in Yellowknife in the Canadian North. So we will continue with that. We had some conversations about a dear friend of ours, Bruce, the Yukon Man, Edwards, who passed away after we recorded the podcast. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about Bruce. I had recorded everything before I had heard that he had passed away. And I left it as it was, knowing that I had a second part coming up here this week. So I'll take the time to talk a little bit about Bruce now. He was an amazing guy. I told the story of how he and I met, and he was just a guy that he was extremely knowledgeable about trucking, didn't push it in anybody's face, was very happy to drive older equipment, was very happy to do whatever needed to be done. You know, he'd been around long enough, he could have his say in where he went, what he did, but he didn't often do that. He was just a good mentor to many, many drivers. And since last week, when I heard about Bruce, I have spent time reminiscing with other drivers that know him and getting messages from drivers that are very thankful for the time that they got to know him and the impact he had on them. Others have been letting me know how much of an impact he had on them. And Bruce, you had an impact on a lot of us. Thank you for showing us what it meant to be a truck driver and a good human. And I really appreciate all of that. I'll tell you a little bit about the origins of why I call him Yukon Man. Well, obviously, one of them is because he lives in the Yukon. And when I first saw him, I said, "Man, you look like a guy on TV." And he was always like, "No." And so I always teased him about him being the Yukon Man and having his own TV show. But the funny part is he actually was on a TV show where they talk about the jade. I can't remember the name of the show now, but it was one where they were mining jade, and Bruce was actually one of the guys in the background. He didn't want to be on camera, but they caught him a few times. So if you look up that show where they're getting jade and big rock, and you may find him in the background there a few times. He didn't want to ever be on camera. And it's funny, another thing, he was asked to be on the Ice Road Trucker Show, and he said, "No, I'm not going to be there." He doesn't like being on camera. So he passed my name along, and they ended up calling me and asking me to be along on the Ice Road Trucking Show, and I turned that down. I didn't like the direction it was going, and I knew how much damage they had done for us up in Yellowknife. So I didn't want to be involved with that. Enough of that. Bruce, Yukon Man, Edwards, you'll be missed. And let's get back to listening to the conversation Ben and I had about working up on the ice roads. Thank you. He says, "You just need to last 2 weeks." And I'm like, "What? Why?" He says, "Everybody's all gung-ho for 2 weeks, and you go out there and there's not, their hours rules are quite different. So you just get out there and you just start running like crazy. Is by 2 weeks they do something stupid, they get kicked off the ice, or they get so tired they can't drive anymore. And he says, you just pace yourself and just do what you can do, and stick to your own pattern. And after you get past 2 weeks, you'll be good until about 6 weeks in. Then you'll be looking forward to the last 2 weeks, and then the last day you're like, ah, whoo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very true. Finding your own rhythm is really key. It's if you get into that rhythm, you can string it out and make it last for a few weeks. And then you're going to get a chance to catch up when there's a breakdown or the road shut down because of a storm or something. You're going to catch up.
Yeah. Yeah. It was very interesting. People would be like really gung ho, and they do a week, and then they just be, this is more than they expected.
Yeah.
And then other guys that are quiet, and they just go out there and get the job done, and just steady and consistently putting in lots of trips.
Yeah, there's a guy who I really respect who works in town still. He had just moved here my second season, I think, and it was his first season, and he did one trip and realized it wasn't for him. Didn't like it, but because of the unspoken rule that if you start, you finish the season. He did. He finished the entire season without a complaint. It wasn't until the season was over that I knew he hadn't enjoyed it, and I really respect that.
Yeah.
He just sucked it up and did what he committed to doing to avoid letting, in this case, Carl down, having a truck without a driver.
Yeah. That is. It's not even really unspoken so much an unspoken rule. Some like when I was there was bonuses tied to it. So if you didn't stick the whole season, they always threatened to pull your bonus. They wanted a commitment. I mean, they got goods to move, right? They can't.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're just about all of us at one point or another during the season were ready to just throw in the towel. And Catherine Wallace, she came up on the ice, and some guys were trying to scare her. And I remember telling her in the first year, I said, "You'll be fine. You'll be fine." And she was pretty nervous, and she made it, and she's kept making it, and she's put so many seasons behind her now. It's unreal. One of the young bucks. There's many of them trying to knock her down and stuff, and he was complaining about her to me. And I'm like, buddy, like, have you seen her spin out yet or had any trouble? No. But she's going to. I said, how many times you spun out? He said, well, twice, but it wasn't my fault. And I was like, you are trying to knock somebody down that is doing a better job than you, and you think you're better. She's just getting the job done.
Yeah.
And she learned, she paid attention. I have a lot of respect for that, and she's been up there for years now.
She's
going back.
Still here.
Yep.
She's here right now. I actually just messaged her an hour ago to say, hey, I'd love to catch you and Bruce for a coffee before you leave town. So I hope they
Yeah, no, she's from the island.
Yeah.
Talking, somebody that comes from nice, warm, almost tropical climate compared to Yellowknife, and going up to Yellowknife and working every winter.
I actually guilty because I was teaching at a trucking school on the island, and Catherine was one of the students, and she'd heard I'd driven the ice road. She said, "Hey, when do you want to do that?" And I got her the job, and I mean, she loves it, but I do sometimes feel bad for having.
I didn't know if you'd bring that up, because I knew about that, and you before it said, "Please keep that quiet."
Oh, really? Oh, well, the teaching bit. Yeah.
The teaching bit.
Yeah, that's something I was never going to admit on the ice, because all you need to do is spell out once, and they're like, "What? And you were teaching?"
Yeah, you're a great teacher. No wonder we have so many good drivers. Yeah, it worked because She did. At any time I was there, she did really well, and she keeps going there.
Yeah, no,
So
she's done well.
it's pretty cool. Um, what has been your? I guess I was going to ask what was the worst trip you were ever on, but maybe it was that one. Was it one without the heat?
I don't think so. Because I look back on that as an adventure. I was young enough then that it was an adventure. If I did
Yeah,
it, yeah, that might be my worst trip. What was my worst trip? I think, um, sometimes if you were running with people that just rubbed you out the wrong way, or and there were people like that. There was just some asshats up there, and if you couldn't, if you couldn't get away from them for whatever reason, or I'm trying to think. I don't remember any breakdowns that were particularly bad. There's some that pissed me off, but really weren't a big deal when you look back on it now. Um, I don't know. I might have to think about that one. No one trip stands out as being really, really bad. Um, but
I remember following coming back down empty one time in convoy um, with a person that lives in Yellowknife, and I don't want to say much more than that, but I was so scared that I was not going to be allowed to drive on the ice anymore.
really,
Oh yeah, we because he is from Yellowknife. Um, the security people had tried to give him trouble, and in the past, and he was like, "You can't do that to me." And he was one of those untouchables because of who he was. And he says, "Just stick with me, and we'll be fine." And I'm like, "Wow!" I mean, we did some fast trips, over the time, but this was consistently fast from when we left the mine until we got back to YK. And it was, I mean, it wasn't the speed that, it was just the thought of running across security when I'm running with this guy and him saying, "Well, it'll be fine because you're with me." But still, it was like, I was driving my own truck and I'm like, I don't want, it'd be a big financial hit if I get kicked off the ice.
absolutely.
You know, that was the scariest trip I was ever on.
That can only be one or two people. But I remember once leaving Lockhart and catching a ride up to I think a caddy with a bunch of guys I didn't know, and we got to McKay, and one of them pulled us onto another channel. Myself and another guy I was running with, I can't remember his name, but I can picture him. And they said, "Hey, you guys okay picking it up? If we pick it up a little bit." So, of course, and we, we were doing pretty close to double the speed limit across McKay Lake, at not the entire lake, but parts of it. And some people won't realize that at McKay Lake at the legal speed takes 3 hours to drive
Yeah,
lake. Yeah,
two
I was.
movie lake,
Pardon me.
two movie lake.
I had to movie lake. Yeah, I was never one for watching movies, but not while I was driving anyway. But
Yeah,
yeah, I was just it wasn't the danger. It was the getting caught because you knew that'd be your career's over. Like that's
yeah, yeah. You'd be heading south. Yeah, that was. I mean, we were all pretty safe up there for the most part, but yeah, yeah. Except one guy. Well, more than
there's
one guy.
yeah there's ways to there's places to cut corners and cheat the system, but there's places not to do it too and ways not to do it. Maybe that's a better way to put it.
Yeah,
Things that you can get away with that everybody does if they can, and there's other things that are just stupid.
yeah, yeah. It's funny to have all the channels of the radios, and you listen in on all the private channels. People think they're getting away with stuff, and
Yeah.
that was kind of funny.
But the
But
radio is one of the things that bugged me the most. Once I started, my whole attitude towards the job changed as the job changed, and it was just much less fun. And the inane chatter on the radio used to annoy me intensely. And I couldn't wait if I wasn't leading, to get on a lake and just shut the bloody thing off at Gordon Lake or McKay Lake, get a little bit of respite. Um, it just that used to wind me up sometimes. And then you'd be leading a group, so you couldn't shut the radio off. And someone new guy or new to you in the group would be, when I get on the big lake, we'll have a chat. And I just think, no, let's not have a chat. I don't want to talk to you or anybody else. Let's just sit in silence for 90 minutes or 3 hours on McKay and enjoy some peace and quiet. But
yeah,
that's just, I'm not very sociable.
open the window and look outside and watch the northern lights, and
Right?
you know,
Just
um,
appreciate the view, and
yeah,
I like to listen to that one to know when the wrong people are coming the other direction or out from behind, and I need to, you know, watch my
yeah.
speed.
One year I was coming. We're finished, wrapped up, and we're headed back to Edmonton. And same thing. I got the same way with the radio. Like I used to be a big radio guy, and I love, talking on the CB way back in the day when I first started driving on the East Coast in the States, and um, stuff like that. Always had radios and base station at home and all that stuff. And after running on the ice, it's just like, ooh, that is just too much.
Nonsense.
And we're coming down from Edmonton, and there's one guy that was always a chatterbox, and he kept calling me. And those FM radios can go a long ways, right? And they'd be like, "Hey, Canadian," and calling the other. Me and another guy were running together, kind of, but we weren't talking, right? Hey, can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Then we got down to high level. I can't. What is that? 12 hours down, something
Um,
like that.
yeah, it'd be something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, something
Nine,
like
nine.
that. 9 hours down, and we stopped there for some supper. And he finally caught up to us there. And I was trying to get a hold of you. Like, really?
Oh,
Oh,
wow. Wow.
wow.
Maybe your
I
radio's broken. Yeah.
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 Better get that checked when you get to Edmonton.
Yeah. Yeah. For now, you better just stay off it in case you blow it up.
Yeah, it might blow up, might cause a fire.
Yeah.
I still remember. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys? And all the way down, to high level, and we're trying to stay ahead of them and get away from them.
Yeah.
And he caught up to us. I think we left him behind again.
There's some characters, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's all kinds up there.
Yeah.
All kinds of interesting people. I one of the best teaching moments for me was um I had a guy in my convoy one time, and he was one of those guys that talked big, been there, done that. He was pretty pretty macho, and he almost ran out of fuel because instead of taking care of his fuel issue, he yeah, Catherine was in my group, in my convoy, and he wanted to spend time following her around, and whatever else was going on. He didn't leave YK with a full load of fuel, which is a mistake. And so we had some trouble, and I didn't get really I didn't get really rude with him, but I said, look, you can't fool around with this. Like this is dangerous stuff. You can't run out of fuel on the ice. You can't have people bringing you fuel. And I can't remember exactly what it's been said, but then because I was coming from the point of view that, hey, you're supposed to be. If I listen to your stories, you're a real macho guy, and you're really um, capable. And Catherine took me aside later, and she says, "You're being too hard on him." And I'm like, "Catherine, he was, you know." And I explained my point. Catherine's like, "You don't understand him. He's scared." And I'm like, "Really?" I didn't. At that point in my life, I didn't understand that. And so we ended up being good friends. And but he ended up leaving because he couldn't handle being on the ice, and he was trying to compensate, and trying to do things, take his mind off of what he was doing, and it was pretty freaky for him. And it was he ended up coming back another year, a different year. I wasn't there, and he did much better. But then a few years ago, he took his life.
Really?
Yeah, and I was really glad that I had worked to understand his point of view, and to understand at that point I still wasn't understanding enough about mental health myself, except that I knew I had issues, and I knew um, anyway. I very glad that Catherine took the time to say to me, "Hey, you need to smarten up and treat him better." And I hadn't thought that I was treating him bad, you know. Um, so that was really good, and that we ended up being decent friends. And but he had some personal issues, and he never got over that. Just too bad. And that's part of the reason I do my podcast, is that we don't know what we don't know what people are going through, really, um, unless we're paying a lot of attention, and even then we don't. And it's okay to, yeah, we need to be. I was I can't say I've always been a very kind person, you know, and I've had a lot to learn that way.
Well, I don't think that makes you any different to anyone else. I mean, I know I'm no different, and I bet the Dalai Lama doesn't go to bed at night thinking, "Yes, I nailed it again today."
Yeah,
I mean, and yeah, it takes different personalities and different experiences to understand yet other personalities and experiences. So Catherine recognized this guy was scared, but you just thought he was a mouthy git, and but yeah, and
yeah,
some of them are for no other reason than they're just assholes. So
yeah, yeah. We had it. When you're into situations that are scary, people react quite differently sometimes, you know, and it's hard to always know what the reason is.
yeah, for sure.
And there are some that are just jerks all the time,
Yeah.
you know. That's who they are. But yeah, there's a few that I stay in contact with, and you're one of them. It's always I always appreciated your attention to detail, and man, you could work me under the table any day.
I didn't do anything. I just gave you a truck to drive.
Oh yeah, but I mean, when we were both running the ice, you
Oh,
know, I couldn't keep up with you. Like
really?
yeah, you were you're a hard worker.
You see, I would disagree. knew that I knew from when I was younger, when I started, yeah, I could do it on very little, not a problem. As I became older, and now I know that I need a decent sleep every night if I'm going to do that job day after day after day. Um, and uh, and when I had my own truck, one of the reasons I liked that was that no one was breathing down my neck to say, "Hey, can you go any faster? Can you do any more trips?" And
Yeah.
so I did. It was comfortable for me. That worked for me. And I mean, we all aim to get 3 trips in a week. It's not always possible, but I wasn't after. I wasn't interested in doing some of the crazy shit that I did when I started and when I was in my 30s, and I could get away with it because
Yeah.
no, I can't.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed working for you driving. I still have some of my social media. Then I still have a picture of your truck with one of my last loads.
Well, that's cool because I don't know if you know, but it's for sale again. I was talking to Bruce,
Oh.
and so maybe if I bought it, you could come and drive it again because I'm thinking about it. I have to admit,
Yeah, that was a good truck.
it
That was a
was,
good
yeah,
truck. Yeah.
it's a good truck, and it probably still is. I think Jared looked after it, so it should still be a good truck.
Yeah. Yeah. So Bruce's
Yeah,
son, right? Bought it
yeah,
from you. Yeah.
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 He passed away. I don't know if it was 18 months or something ago now, and the
Yeah.
truck's sitting since.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Another one we lost, that
another one. Yeah, yeah,
he was, I think he's younger than us or
yeah.
around, yeah.
No, he's probably the best part of 10 years younger. I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Crazy.
yeah.
And Bruce is still going, and
He always will be too. I
yeah.
think. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are you doing these days? What do you do for a job
These days,
nowadays?
I work for a waste management company. We have a fleet of trucks, and I do all the training and the safety. And we have a bit of heavy equipment too. And yeah, I just keep busy trying to keep that on the road and keep people from being hurt. And I'm also fitting in right now as the operations manager because she left. Uh, I've got 1 more week to do with that. Actually, 2 more weeks to do with that. But I'm quite enjoying it. And there's some big changes which I probably shouldn't go into too much. But there's big changes happening, all of which I think will work in my favor in quite a big way. So I'm really excited. I'm really enjoying the job. I left the oil patch to do this, and I was only working 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and I was very reluctant to give that up. But I tell you, now that I'm working at this job, I don't miss that at all. I miss the guys I worked with, but the schedule, it's just funny. That's the one thing I was most reluctant to give up, and it's insignificant because I'm just having a good time and being
Is it?
appreciated, well managed, and all the things that weren't happening in the oil patch.
Yeah, I know on your 2 weeks off, you would jump on your motorbike and go touring, or you'd
Yeah,
fly, instead of flying back home to YK, you would fly down to wherever you left your bike and go for a
yeah.
bike ride.
Still keep one bike on Vancouver Island. I'm actually going to move it to Calgary this summer. But that's another thing. When my boss called me up and offered me this job, which was out of the blue, he said, "I know how important your bike trips are to you. I don't want to take them away from you." He said, "Well, we'll make it work," and he does.
Good. And I see you, what is it, a Range Rover or Land Rover you have?
Land Rover,
Land
please.
Rover.
Come
Yeah,
on, you want to
sorry.
stay friends or what? Yeah, Land
Does it
Rover
drive
are
on the wrong
defender.
side?
No, it drives on the well, yeah, it does, but it's on the proper side. But that is the wrong side. Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
How are your
that's cool.
fingers doing? You were trying to do something on your truck and you kind of froze your fingers this winter.
Oh yeah, I was the battery died on my car,
On your
and
car.
I thought, well, I took the Land Rover to work and tried to boost the car on the way back, but it was way too cold not to be wearing gloves and fiddling around trying to, undo the battery terminals and stuff. And yeah, I regretted that. Actually, I've frozen to some extent my hands quite often, but never, ever have I felt the pain that I felt then when they were thawing out. I said a bad word, and if I knew two, I'd have said the other one too.
One
It
bad
was,
word. Okay.
yeah, the
But
only one I
multiple
know. I
times.
said it many times. Yeah,
It's one thing that I found funny. You get used to the cold weather, and you'd start. At least for me, anyway, I'd do some things without my gloves on, and I would burn my fingertips off.
yeah,
Your skin would get stuck to the metal because you're like, oh, it's warm outside. It's not so cold today, and you grab something, and ooh, ouch.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
very different.
And I find that over the years, my fingers especially have become more sensitive to the cold because I've pushed it
Yeah.
too far too many times. And it doesn't take long now. And yeah, my fingers are letting me know that they're not happy.
Yeah. So any final thoughts, Ben, as we wrap up here?
Well, it's really good to chat as always, and it's quite appropriate because it's the season's ending in what's today, the 28th, 29th. So the season's probably the
29.
end or the next day, and I did miss. I wish I'd done a couple of trips this season. I had spoken to Peter about possibly doing a couple of weekend trips if he needed me to for whatever reason, but his drivers worked out for him, and that's great. But I do hope that next year I might be able to do at least one, just for old time's sake, and
Yeah.
have a more positive attitude towards the job now, having taken a couple of years off. So I would actually look forward to it, and but it's good to talk about some of the friends and the characters that we meet on the job, and yeah, I mean, here we are coming up 10 years after we first met, and we're chatting on a podcast. I haven't seen you in person for actually, well, it must be 2 or 3 years. Must be, I would think.
We met.
Met at a truck stop in
We met.
Edmonton,
Yeah, was it Edmonton or yeah, somewhere anyway.
somewhere
Uh,
Edmonton area.
yeah,
Yeah. Um,
you were on your bike.
I can't remember. I may be. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're on. But I've really appreciated you, Ben, and
Likewise.
one of the best guys I ever ran. One of the best guys I ran with up there. The other one is pushing daisies now,
Yeah.
and Bruce is still running. Catherine
This is
and
still going. Yeah.
a
All
few
right.
others, but
I've still got photos of him on my phone. I enjoy coming across them.
yeah,
And yeah, no, I likewise. I'm really glad that we stayed in touch and remained friends. And long may that last.
yeah. So you take care, and want to remind everybody to like and share, and get the word out. Put reviews on the podcast, and thank you for following along, and we'll stay in touch.
Take care, my friend.